Good morning.
Good morning.
There we go. We got a live audience.
Barely.
Last week, our lesson covered the letters of James, in which he said we live our faith in service. This week, we have an example of somebody who does that. As their full-time occupation, we were supposed to have two examples of it. But Percy Strickland, head of chat, had a conflict in his own church and with something he had to do, and so he left it in the capable hands of Ingrid deRoo. Ingrid hails from Holland, Michigan, where she grew up. Her father loved climbing the top of every state in the Union. So there was a lot of travel involved. Her mother was into history and antiques. She went out of the Midwest to the East Coast, to Boston area, to Gordon College, which is a Christian liberal arts college in the Boston area. I looked it up this morning, and they have just an enormous number of majors, everything from biochemistry and engineering and everything to Christian education and all in between. 2004, I think I remember when the Richmond Public Schools were looking for teachers, and they went up to the Northeast to recruit. And I'm happy to say they had some success because Ingrid was a product of that recruitment. She started at Oak Grove Elementary School. After a few years, she moved to Peter Paul Development Center as education director. She now is with Communities in Schools, which is a nonprofit working within the schools in order to get parents and community members involved with the education of our children. And at George Mason, of course, we have a large involvement, extensive involvement through our mentoring program, which has been going on for 13, 14 years, I would guess now. Ingrid hasn't been there the whole time, but she sure does light up the place when she got there, and we appreciate very much. She lives in Church Hill, in the neighborhood, in the hood. She goes to Hope Midtown Church and is planning travels to Egypt, Jordan, and Israel this summer. So she lives her faith, and we want to hear a little more about it today. So Ingrid, please.
I think y'all are like the nicest people I've ever met. Thank you so much. I've been here the 1st of March. I was able to speak at the Presbyterian Women's Luncheon, and such a gift to be with you all then, and then thank you again for having me today. And as Ian said, Percy was going to be with us this morning. He's actually my neighbor, and he is a part of the East End Fellowship Church, and they have a large gathering at 4 o'clock on Sundays, and then they have a more intimate gathering once a month at 10 o'clock, and it happened to be that it fell today, and he is an elder there, so he needed to be there, and that's okay. So I hope today that I will speak with you a little bit about what chat does as well, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We'll have some time for question and answer at the end. But as I was driving here this morning, I was listening to just some songs I have on my iPod, and one of the songs was, one of the lyrics was, I will be with you in heavenly places. And it just repeated, I will be with you in heavenly places, I will be with you in heavenly places. And I started thinking about, being here and at the Covenant class is a heavenly place. And sometimes we forget that there is heaven on earth. And so I'm grateful to be with you today, and I just pray that whatever the Lord would have me speak today would not be of me, but would be of Him for our hearing. So I want to talk with you about a variety of things that have been on my heart and on my mind, specifically when Ian and Caroline asked me to come and speak a lot of times when I'm getting ready in the morning, I feel like the Lord gives me words and I quickly go and write things down. And so this is kind of a culmination of thoughts and that have specifically come to me about speaking here and with the work that y'all have been doing at George Mason specifically. So we're going to look at a little bit of scripture together this morning, and I'm going to share some stories. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I want you to think back to the beginning of December, or the end of December 2015, and the new year was fast approaching. How many of you were starting to think about the changes that you wanted to make in 2016? Okay, there are some people. I am one of those people as well, and I'm actually still trying to make those changes here at March 13. Change is hard, right? Isn't it? Like, how hard was it to get up today, right? An hour earlier than normal. It was dark when I woke up this morning. And then there's tension in change, isn't there? There's the tension because you want to make changes, right? You want to be better at something. But then there's also that realization that change takes hard work and dedication and commitment and sacrifice. And so change creates some tension there, right? So in this season of wrestling with change for my own life, I've thought about the term status quo. So you know how things come in threes? For example, if you get a new car and all of a sudden you're driving that car on the road and you start to notice that car everywhere, right? That's what status quo has been for me. I'm hearing status quo all over the place and thinking about what does that mean? So I have this heightened awareness of what does the status quo mean in my life. Does anyone know what the translation of status quo is? Anybody take Latin? Study Latin? Okay. Well, it is a Latin phrase, and it means the existing state of affairs, particularly with regards to social or political issues. To maintain the status quo is to keep things the way that they presently are, right? Not changing. So with this definition of status quo in mind, I want us to read Luke 14. So if you have a Bible or you have an app on your phone, if you would take that out. We're going to read Luke 14, 25 to 34. Bible is falling apart. So Luke 14. Okay. Oh, good. I'm reading it from the NIV. I don't know what version that Bible is or whatever you have, but just try to follow along. I'm starting at verse 25. Okay. So the title is The Cost of Being a Disciple. Large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, his wife and children, his brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. And anyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? For if he lays the foundation and is not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule him, saying, 'This fellow began to build and was not able to finish.' Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Will he not first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he is not able, he will send a delegation while the other is still a long way off and will ask for terms of peace. In the same way, any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, can it be made salty again? It is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure pile. It is thrown out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear." Will you all pray with me for a second? Let's pray. Lord, we are listening. Would you open our ears to hear and our eyes to see you in new and fresh ways today for your glory and our good. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So as I've been thinking about the status quo and these scripture verses, I've been thinking a lot about what does it look like to be a disciple. to let go of my plans, to let go of the things that I have in my life, the people, and commit daily to our Lord Jesus Christ. What does that look like? What does it look like to sacrifice? What does sacrifice look like at different ages and different seasons of our lives and different chapters? How do we let go of our dreams and our plans and our desires and embrace what He has at any time in our life? Or don't we? Don't we embrace it? Maybe we want to hold on to the status quo. So for the 10 years now that I've been in Richmond, I've had the privilege of working in education and with families, and I still feel like this is the calling that God has on my life. Like Ian mentioned, I was a teacher with Richmond Public Schools, and then I moved on to the Peter Paul Development Center, and now I've been a site coordinator with George Mason Elementary School and Communities in Schools for the last 2 years. In my current role as a site coordinator, I get to work with students in a variety of ways, and I have a lot of autonomy to walk around the school and help to serve students in their various needs throughout the day, unlike a teacher would. So I really get a chance to get to know every one of the students in some facet. So Communities in Schools, our mission is to surround students with a community of support, empowering them to stay in school and achieve in life. And just like I said at the Presbyterian Women's Luncheon, not only just to achieve, but to come and enjoy the journey. That's my own personal, objective in having these children be there. So no 2 days as a site coordinator look the same. So a variety of things happen, and I get texts from people saying I'm coming this day, or I have volunteers who are saying I can't come, or I have kids who aren't coming on time and I've got to call and figure out where they are. So every day is a different experience for me. But overall, we want to provide them with meaningful, caring relationships. We want them to be able to feel like they are safe at school and have a place to learn and to grow. We want to give them a healthy start and a healthy future. We want to give them a chance to give back to their community. And we believe that every one of our students at our school deserves these. Every one of our students in general deserves these things and needs these things. So I do go into work with a plan A of things I have to accomplish every single day, but it always adjusts to plan B because we're working with lives, and our students need us to be changing, and because they are continually changing. So I'm going to tell a story that I did tell at the Presbyterian Women's Luncheon, but I think it will still enlighten those of you who've heard it already. So a week and a half ago, I received a call while I was in my office, which is typical, from a third grade teacher asking me to come down to her classroom. And it was about 10:15 in the morning. When I got to her door, she was waiting for me with a young man who was kind of hiding behind her. And she said, "Miss deRoo," really softly. So just I could hear, not the boy behind me. "This boy has been coming to school every single day, and he's really smelly." He was a new student to our school, and the students were complaining around him, and he was distracting everyone, and she was having a hard time teaching. So she said, "Could you help me get some fresh clothes for him and find out what's going on?" So I assured her I would take him, and that's typically what I do. And our goal is to take kids out of class, but then try to get them right back in. So we don't want them to be out of class for long periods of time. But we want to be able to meet their needs so they can be successful. So I said to the young man, I said, "Okay, come with me. We're going to go on a little walk talk." And that's what I usually say to students because it's really non-threatening. We're just kind of going around. We're not saying we're going somewhere together. We're just walking and talking and trying to figure out what's going on. So the two of us walked to my office, and we found him a clean pair of pants and a new shirt, and actually a little bow tie for him to wear, and he just felt so empowered and so good. And he returned to the class. And one thing I really appreciated when he returned, the other students don't poke fun at him. They get it because they've all been there. And so it's really wonderful for us to see how the students do care for one another. So he had shared with me that he and his dad had just recently moved in with his grandmother, and that nobody was doing any laundry. So he had no choice but to wear those dirty clothes over and over again. So as I returned him to class, I said to him, "Hey, if this happens to you again, just come to my office on your own. Don't wait for your teacher to call me, and we'll get you some new clothes to wear." So sure enough, 2 days later, he came to me and said, "Miss deRoo, I'm really smelly." Like literally picked up, "I'm really smelly." And I said, "Okay, Danelle, come to my office, we'll get you some new clothes." And so as I kind of get to know these students, they become more on my radar. There are some students who have higher needs than others, and those students, like this is Sakara and this is Marvin. Sakara and Marvin are students that I actually work with almost on a daily basis. So there are 450 students at our school, 448, and I am charged with case managing 10% of our school. So what that means is the students that really come to school not having support at home, maybe aren't coming to school, they become on my radar because they're not attending, or kids that have significant behavior problems, or kids that are struggling academically. Those are the three kind of indicators for dropping out of school. And so we actually say, hey, how can we work with them? So in Marvin's situation, actually Hunter works with Marvin, and Marvin is so awesome, y'all. He is an entrepreneur, and he goes around to people in his neighborhood and he says, I will collect your mail, or I will take out your trash and charge a small fee. And he has such a large amount of money now that his teacher came to me and said, can we help him open a bank account? Like, we need to start investing some of this money for good. He's not the best student, he could be, but he doesn't really have any accountability. I actually have been to his house several times, and the last time I went to his house, he has a backpack that he wasn't taking off a lot of times at school, and I'd say to him, hey dude, you gotta take your backpack off. Like, we're in class, time to be, engaged. And he would always carry this backpack around. So when I dropped him off one time at home, he lives in a part of Mosby Court, but kind of, it's a little nicer area called Oliver Hill. And so we went into his house, and there were several people in the home, probably 8 people, and he held his backpack on the whole time. And I started realizing why he was doing that was because these weren't people he knew. And this stuff on his back was the only stuff he owned that was actually his. And so he felt like, I have control over this. I don't know what was in there, I don't know if his money was in there or what, but it was like his safety net of like, this is mine. And so that was really eye-opening for me, and through my job I do have these experiences to really get to know him and his family. And same thing with Sakara. And Sakara's worked with, I think, Marsha Williams in the past, and she's really doing very well. She's very academically bright, and I'm going to talk about her in a little bit, but the point is that I get to know all of these students in a variety of ways and figure out who is best matched. So some of you work with these kids personally and get to know their stories, and that is really, really meaningful. So my point was, the boy that had the smelly clothes, he became one of those kids that I now work with every single day. He needs that additional support, and that's our goal, is to keep kids, dropping out. Communities and Schools is a dropout prevention agency, and we do that so that kids in elementary school, we know dropping out doesn't just start in high school, it's starting in elementary school. If you can't read by 3rd grade, you're gonna struggle. And not to say that you can't get beyond that, but we wanna be able to put those supports in place at an early age. So my role as a site coordinator doesn't allow me to just accept the status quo, because our schools are looking so much different than what they were originally intended to be. They were created to be places where kids came to learn to read and write and add, but they are now a support system in a way like they've never been. So our students are evolving, and our schools have to evolve because our students are and their needs are. Students and families rely on the school nurse to be their healthcare provider on the weekends. You can't believe the line outside of our nurse's door because something happened the weekend, and mom said, wait till you get to school and see the nurse on Monday. Families look to us to provide most of their meals for breakfast and lunch. And beyond this, the school has a variety of social and emotional needs that we've never had before. And teachers are looked to meet those too. So they're kind of stretched in all different ways. And at the center of this, I said this when I spoke on that March 1st, is the family. And the breakdown of our family. And what does family look like today? And so to be honest, our schools are looked at to play that role as well, even if they weren't intended to do so. So a little bit about George Mason Elementary School. It's one of the oldest elementary schools in Richmond. It was built in 1922, and it's still standing, but barely. Barely all, okay. So beyond the physical structure, our students come to school, and as I've told you, they have really hard lives, really hard. Things that I've never had to deal with in my 35 years. But most of our students have little structure at home. And so when you come to school where school is supposed to be structured, there's that tension, there's that pushback. We have very, very little parenting that's going on, and students are learning to raise themselves, and we just know that's not how it's supposed to be. So I want to give you a little bit of some facts of where our students are coming from. Did you know that Richmond City has the largest concentration of poverty on the East Coast south of New York City?
Yes.
Yes.
Largest? Washington?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Huge. We have 6 large public housing developments in Richmond, And most of our students come from a very large one called Mosby Court, which I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to tell you a couple facts about the public housing. Residents of public housing pay rent based on their income. The rent contribution of the tenant is called the total tenant payment, the TTP. And it's generally 30% of residents' income with a $25 national minimum. Based on the information in the most recent Resident Characteristics Report, which was June 30, 2015, the minimum rent in Richmond public housing is $25 as well. Here it is. 57% of Mosby Court tenants pay less than $200 a month to live there. The annual income of public housing residents living in Richmond is $9,938. So that's their annual income. And also I was kind of interested to know how long can people stay. So 22.3% of families residing in public housing have lived there for less than a year. 10% have lived in public housing for 1 to 2 years, while 67% have lived in public housing for more than 2 years. And one thing I know about working in Richmond City schools and with our population is that they are transient. They do move a lot. A little bit about free and reduced lunch. The percentage of students eligible for free or reduced lunch under the National School Lunch Program is a proxy measure for concentration of low-income students within a school. So children from families with an income at or below 130% of the poverty level are eligible for free lunch. And all of our students at our school receive free lunch. So you kind of get a picture of the students' lives, and they're living in poverty, and poverty is a trauma factor. And so when our students are coming, they already have that kind of trauma flag that's raised when they come in. So with these stressors, our students are coming into school, and in the mornings when they're getting off the bus, I would say probably 85% of our students are bussed. Their faces look worn, they look tired. There's not a lot of structure as far as going to bed at a certain bedtime. I ask kids all the time, what time do you go to bed? Whenever I fall asleep. Lots sleep on couches, lots sleep on floors, lots wear what they're wearing to school, what they were sleeping in. So this is the majority, and it's not all of our students. I can't say it's all of our students, but it's a lot of our students. Anybody heard of Ruby Payne? She came to speak here recently, and she wrote a book called The Framework for Understanding Poverty. And she was interviewed before she spoke, I think it was at Grace and Holy Trinity, I want to say. But anyway, she was interviewed by the Times-Dispatch, and I read this article, and there was something that stuck with me. She says, schools need to develop schedules that allow students and teachers to build relationships because relationships matter more than almost anything else to those in poverty. That's key, right? It's relationship building. And I started thinking, if for just a half an hour a day, if our teachers were given the authority and the ability to sit with their class and speak words of encouragement and get to know them and empower them and hear what happened to them over the weekend, how much more would they be learning? How much more successful would they be in the classroom? Because we know that children and people in poverty crave relationship and that connection. How much would that benefit our classrooms down the line? So that's just me thinking about, could that benefit? And I know that we are in a public school and we have standards and we have benchmarks that we have to make and kids have to be learning. I'm not saying that's not important, but I'm also saying how do we build in that connection, that relationship with the teachers? I can't tell you, and you probably know this, how many of you are actually volunteered or have volunteered at George Mason in some capacity? So many of you. And how many of you have gotten the hugs? Oh yeah, they want the hugs, right? They want that connection. They want that feeling of support and care. They want structure. We know students want structure. Kids want structure. They want routine. They want to know what to expect, and they crave it, and they deserve it. So going back to Sakara over here, Sakara is the oldest of 3 girls and loves life. You can just see it in her face, right? And that is not like a forced smile at all. She's in 2nd grade. She is a wonderful reader, loves to read, very confident in herself, and she's also easily defeated. So I eat lunch with her once a week, and we were eating, a week ago or so, and I said to her, what happens when you get home? What does that look like when you get home? then I never really thought about when kids are, how are they embraced when they arrive at home. And a lot of times our parents are so, what's the word? Not depressed is too extreme of a word, but they don't have a lot of energy to kind of get up and go. And a lot of times, in my experience, I've just seen parents just in their bedrooms and they don't really come out. Kids get their own snacks and things like that. And that is kind of what I pictured for her, and she said that's true. I said, does your mom greet you when you get home from school? And she said, oh, no. I said, what do you do? She said, I go up into my room. And I said, so no one says anything to you when you get home? And I said, she's 8 years old. What would that be like if I came home? My mom would have a snack for me, and we'd sit down, and what'd you learn today? And okay, go out and play. But she doesn't have any of that. And not to say she doesn't have a caring mom, because every time we've called her mom to say, can she do this after school program, or can she be in dance, or can she be on the announcement team, her mom always says yes. But there's just not that a lot of additional support. How well does her mother even know who she is as a person? There's not that development of a person. And so that's my job. And that's all of our jobs. And how do we support children like Sakara? How do we support our own children? How do we help to develop this next generation? So this is just one story, or these are two stories that I share about Marvin and Sakara. And every one of our students has a story, and they all deserve the best education. They all deserve the best future. And I have to put on the lens of saying, I can't control Sakara's mom. I can't control what's going on in Mosby Court. I can't control those kind of things. I can only control how I react and how I am coming to school. And so I do make a conscious decision every single morning to walk in and to say, I'm gonna be my best for these kids, and even when I have hard days. So that's just kind of who I am, and I'm not always that bright, chipper person that I maybe appear to be, but I kind of fake it till I make it, because I believe that the kids really deserve that, because we don't know what they're getting at home, but we do know what we can provide them at school. And I hope that for me, that would rub off on our staff, because they're really bogged down too. And I try to be encouragement to them too, to say, come on, let's fight this good fight together. So sometimes in the morning, I do devotions in the morning. I like to get up. I really love in scripture where it says that Jesus got up early while it was still dark and went away to quiet places. I love that. And I try to do that in the morning, and today was dark and I wasn't prepared for that, but just kind of back to what Jesus would do. And I don't know if any of you read this version of the Bible, the Message. Anybody? It's in contemporary language, and I just love it. It's just, I don't know, it's one of my favorite ways to read the Bible, and I typically will read the NIV and the Message, just to kind of compare the two. So I'm going to read our passage in the Message version, and just the last part, and I actually wrote it down. Simply put, if you're not willing to take what is dearest to you, whether your plans or people, and kiss it goodbye, you can't be my disciple. Salt is excellent, but if the salt goes flat, it's useless, good for nothing. Are you listening to this? Really listening to this? So now I'm going to put it in my own words. If you're not willing to take what is dearest to you, whether your plans or your people, and kiss it goodbye, you can't be my disciple. You will be disappointed, people will frustrate you, and society will let you down, and you won't have my very best. So what I'm trying to say here through this scripture, and what I feel like God is trying to speak to us, is that there are huge problems in our world, and poverty is one of those, and it can frustrate us to the point where we say, well, what can I really do? And we become paralyzed. But we can't hold on to the status quo, and our culture and our world and our families and our students and our own lives and our schools are constantly changing. So what is the cost of not living out service to the world in our vocations or our gifts or our passions? If the cost of discipleship is high, what is the cost of non-discipleship? There's a justice seeker, there's an organization in DC called the International Justice Mission. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it, but there's a man who used to work for that organization named John Cotton Richmond, actually. And this is what he says. We can't avoid counting the cost. If we don't consider the tower before we build it, it's just saying, we can't avoid counting the cost It's not don't consider the tower before you build it. It's just saying also consider the cost of not going for it. Scripture never says don't build the tower. It just says consider the tower before you build it. Building the tower is assumed. It never suggests that we should count the cost of discipleship and then not follow God. It says count the cost of discipleship and do it. We just have to be prepared to finish the work. It can be hard to make the argument that says we should look at the cost of not doing something. It's hard to prove a negative, he says. So I want to give you an example, because maybe some of you are thinking, oh, this is all wonderful and great, and I'm glad she's found her calling, but this isn't just a message about my life. This is also to empower us to say, at whatever season we're in, at whatever lifetime we're in, whatever chapter we're living, that God is still at work and still has purpose for us to be his disciple. So I want to give you a little story here. There was a young woman, and she was born in 1927. Her name was Mary Ellen. And she was a little girl who dreamed about becoming a doctor. But culture and gender barriers told her that women shouldn't go to medical school. She was frustrated. But she hurdled those barriers, and she ended up graduating from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. And then when it became time for her to do her residency, she fell ill with tuberculosis. And she had to be sidelined and 2 years in a sanitarium. She was very frustrated. So she read books about the lung because that was the problem that she had. And she learned that there was an alarming trend of young babies that were born with respiratory distress, and then they would die. Now let me turn to the fact that most people don't know, and that is that Jackie Kennedy, 4 months before she buried her husband, she buried her child. In August of 1963, Jackie Kennedy was rushed to the hospital, and she, through an emergency C-section, gave birth to a little baby boy named Patrick Bouvier Kennedy, and he was born 5.5 weeks early. He was in respiratory distress. And with the best medicine in the world that they had to offer, and the best doctors in the world attending to the President of the United States' wife and his newborn child, Patrick died after 2 days. So, but at the time, Mary Ellen Avery had figured out why Patrick had died and why so many others, and now millions, had been suffering. You see, there's a foamy coating on the lung that allows it to expand, and young babies that are born prematurely don't have that. And that foamy coating is called surfactant. So Mary Ellen figured out, if she could get surfactant into the baby's lungs, the babies would live. So she wrote 23 scholarly papers on her idea over 6 years, and no one would still listen to Dr. Mary Ellen Avery. No one. Until finally, a physician in Japan decided that he would try. So he injected surfactant into the lungs of a newborn baby that was born prematurely, and the baby lived. Dr. Avery died just 3 years ago, and before she died, she was given the Presidential Medal of Honor, and she has been credited in journal after journal as having come up with the idea that has caused millions of babies to live. Maybe some of you are Avery babies or have had kids that have benefited from her knowledge. So it's amazing. What if Mary Ellen hadn't lived her story? What if she said, I can't overcome the cultural barriers and the discrimination and my illnesses? But we don't know. She was able to save millions of lives, and obviously that is significant. But we don't have to do that. We can work with one child. We can work with our own children. We can live into the calling that God has on our lives. And that is meaningful. So when I think about this story with Mary Ellen, and I think about kind of my own story, she could have been frustrated and said, hey, forget it, I'm not gonna keep on researching this, what's happening with the lung. And sometimes I think about that. I think, is it really worth it? Is it worth this work? It is frustrating. And actually, last week was probably the most frustrating week, and I started thinking, was it because I spoke about all these things that are so great at George Mason? It was such a hard week last week, and we had so many things going on in our neighborhoods that were carrying into our school, and our students weren't being able to learn. And it's frustrating to think, I can't control that outside. And is it worth the efforts that we're trying to make in working with these students? But it is. And I've realized that the cost of not doing it is far greater than actually trying. Non-discipleship, I think, robs us of of life's greatest joys, and it denies the rest of the world the benefits of who God has made each of us to be. There aren't any guarantees, but the one guarantee that we have is that the Lord, our God, is with us, and to the very end of the age. So this is part of my story and the encouragement that I have for all of you to, not accept the status quo and to move forward in our lives, and whatever that could mean for you today. A little bit about, I did want to talk about Chat. Chat is Churchill Activities and Tutoring, and they are an amazing program in the East End. It was started by a couple, Percy and Angie Strickland, who moved here after graduating from Duke University. Percy started working for a ministry at University of Richmond, and Angie, his wife, was looking to go into medical school. And I think she was accepted into MCP, so I just know them a little bit. But they lived in Churchill on Chimborazo Boulevard, and they wanted to open their home to two students, to come in for tutoring, just 2 days a week. And it was like raining kids in their house, and they had kids in their kitchen and their living room, all over the place. And because Percy was working at University of Richmond, he said, hey, why don't we get some of these University of Richmond students to come over to our house and partner one-on-one with students. And so that's how Chat evolved. That now today, students, I don't know the numbers, but students come from University of Richmond or VCU or anywhere for that matter, people come to work with one student that they actually get to see on Mondays and Tuesdays. And it has proven to be really life-changing. Kids are wanting to come, they are falling in line with the expectations of the program. And another thing that's really neat is similar to what Communities in Schools does is we try to wrap around kids, is Chat will come, so we have 13 kids at George Mason that I'm aware of that actually attend Churchill Activities and Tutoring. And they come and have lunch with the kids. So they're seeing these mentors, these volunteers out at their after school programs, and then they see them in the school during lunchtime. And so that kind of support is actually in some ways looking like what a family should look like. And again, it's about those relationships and those connections that students are making. So yeah, that's a little bit about Chat. And I would love, if you all have any questions or comments or thoughts, I would love to hear those. And then I'll close with a word of prayer. I think it's 10:30, so yeah.
I'll lead off with a question.
Yeah.
I know you've been initiating programs to involve mothers and parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
How's that going? What are you doing? How's it going?
Yeah, so we just know that kids will change to a certain degree. There are some kids who just have that natural ability to survive and be resilient, but most of our kids don't, so they need that parental support. So last year, we started an initiative called First Grade Cadre, which is a monthly initiative where we invite parents to come with their child to learn a skill. And it's from 8:15 to 9 a.m., so it's 45 minutes, and it's come whenever you want. So you don't have to be there at 8:15, it's just kind of come as you can. And what we've been doing, and we found to be really wonderful, is that we have volunteers that come in and they will teach the skill to the parent, and then the parent can then work with the child. So instead of having parents come in, we do this overall lesson that can sometimes be intimidating. We have the volunteer come over, meet the parent, introduce themselves, build some relationship with them, and then teach them a skill. And then they get to take whatever the activity is home. And so we started with about 15 parents, maybe not even, maybe 9, and then 15, and then 20, and I think one time we had 35 folks or 40 folks that came. And what's been so great about that is parents started to kind of get into a routine. This year we made little magnets with the future dates of when they could come for these events, and they can put them on their refrigerator so that they know, hey, this is a free breakfast, it's a time with my child. And then we do a little extra, so beyond the academic piece, sometimes what we'll do, this past event, we had a little half sheet of paper that said 66 positive things you can say to your child, and we made it into a magnet so they could put it on their fridge. So, I love you, I'm grateful for you, how was school today? Anything like that, that we can help to build those family connections at home is something that we know will be long lasting. So it is an uphill battle, it's really hard to get parents to come to school, partly because we're not a neighborhood school. Mosby Court is a good mile, so a mile and a half away, and a lot of our parents don't have cars, so to walk there is really challenging. So that's part of our issue, but that's not all of our issue. If parents want to come, they would figure out a way to come too. And we do have parents that do. So, and I think too, is part of my own kind of mission is to really get to know parents and empower them to say, you need to be here. This is important. This is an important place for you to be. So thank you for asking that. Yeah.
I see your role as a coordinator. Do you have other resource personnel in the school, their officers, resource officers, counselor? I mean, you can't do it all.
Certainly not. We do not have a resource person like that. We do have a counselor at our school, and she does a lot of, we have a lot of needs with our students academically. And so she does child study a lot, where they actually look at kids to say, would they benefit from being in a self-contained classroom and receive other services. So she's tied up with that a lot, but she does do some behavior management classes in different classrooms. And then we also have something in our school called therapeutic day treatment, where kids that have significant behavior issues are referred to these agencies. They're outside agencies that are housed in our school. And kids are identified, I'll give you an example. If we have a kid that can't stay in the classroom, which we have a lot of those, they just walk around the school all day, we try to refer them to behavioral counseling, and it's really for mental health, and it helps to support students so that they can be in the classroom, and those folks check in with them multiple times a day. And they build incentives with them, and they just build them some coping mechanisms for staying in the classroom, and that's benefited our school tremendously. A lot of schools don't have that. The other thing is we partner with other outside agencies. One is called Say It With Heart, and we do it's an anti-bullying class for our 3rd and 5th grade. And that's kind of similar to, I guess, a DARE, where they would come in for 45 minutes once a week, and they would teach kids, how to care for one another. So we have that every week too. So we do have some of those resources. Yeah. Yeah, Carol.
And you also have Blue Sky Fund.
Yes, thank you.
That comes in for 3rd and 5th grade to take kids out of the school in some instances and expose them to nature.
Yeah, they do science lessons with our 3rd and 5th grade students, and they take the whole grade level out on their buses. This past week they went down to Belle Isle, and they do science investigation, and they learn about all different types of aspects of nature, and they go to places that, most of our students have never been to Belle Isle, and that's really close to where they live. So it's really wonderful for kids to be exposed in the way that our schools can't always do that, but thankfully partners like Blue Sky Fund can do that for us and have the ability to do so. So it's really wonderful. Yeah.
Mr. Benton has requested a significant increase in school funds. Would more money, that much more money, benefit the schools, benefit yours? Would that be a great benefit to education?
Absolutely. I think, yes, 100%. If for nothing, for our buildings. Our buildings are just falling apart. We have teachers that are wearing masks all day when they're teaching because the air quality is so bad. We have just critters like you can't believe in our school. We just need a new facility. Bottom line, our schools cannot function anymore. You would be so embarrassed by the bathroom situation that we have at our school. So yes, I would say, if that money was going for facilities, I don't know about teacher salaries, I can't speak on that, but just for me to be in a healthy environment, something that's positive, that's bright, that encourages learning would be such a great benefit for our kids, and they deserve that, and I don't know why, there's such rub with city council. I don't understand all the politics, I don't, but I would say yes, we definitely need new facilities.
Amen.
Yeah, Bruce.
Well, let me go back and let me help you with that question. There are 2 pots of money. One is capital and the other is operating. Dr. Bedden is primarily asking for operating funds, and that is so that they can, take care of the teachers and take care of getting smaller classrooms and things of that nature. The capital expenditure is a whole nother discussion that needs to be addressed. So that, remember that. And Dr. Bedden laid it out Thursday night, did a wonderful job. Question I have for you is, how many parents are single parents, children in estimate? I don't think you have exact statistics. And what is the average age of a parent?
Again, I don't know.
And what's
I
your
could take a guess.
Your personal experience?
Yeah, sure.
I'm not asking for statistical
Sure.
perfection. No fact check.
I mean, I wanna say 97% are single parents.
Okay,
Not to say that they're not in relationships.
right,
um, But not married, certainly not married. We have a lot of same-sex relationships, a lot. That's really been eye-opening for me this year, mainly women. And it's just, to be honest, that's just in my observation. And that is really confusing for kids, really, really confusing. I don't know how to answer that. I mentor a girl who I've been with for 3 years, and her mother was married, and husband went to jail, has 5 kids with him. Now she's married to a woman. Very confusing. She doesn't understand. And I don't know how to explain that. And I don't think that's my role with her, but it's just eye-opening to me that there's breakdown all over the place in kids' lives. And so there's lots of confusion in your developmental years. You're trying to get a sense of who you are and what is this world, and then all these other things.
Does school really become the most stabilizing place
Absolutely.
in their lives?
Oh my goodness. You think kids want to have snow days? They want to be at school. They want to be where they know who is there, that they are cared for, that they have the food they need. We give out 25 food bags on Thursdays for mainly our homeless students. We have probably 20 families that are homeless. And that doesn't mean that they're living in a shelter. Some are. But they could be living with family members or whatnot. Do you know how many kids come up to me and say, "Can I please have some food for the weekend?" And they will come, and it's not like they're just, kind of trying to make fun of it. They're really saying, "I really have no food in my house."
Do you get the food, if I may,
Yeah.
do you go to the food bank and partner with them to try to help them with
They
that?
deliver it, yep, so Feed More delivers the bags to our school based on the need. So for instance, Woodville, which is the school in the East End behind us, receives 100 food bags. We receive 25. I don't know how they come up with those numbers, but we have to make our best decision, and then we have a waiting list of kids who are on that as well, because our kids are transient, and so when they move, then a food bag opens up. But once they get the food bag, they get it for the whole year, and it's every weekend, 2 days worth of food for every breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Martha, did you have a question?
Yes, I understand that Thursday was Parents-Teachers Conference Day. How many parents would show up for those appointments?
I don't know, I'm not sure, but not many. I was there on Friday morning and I didn't see one parent, so I don't know. But I was kind of walking around the school, but very few. And the parents that come are the ones that are always there anyway. I don't know if it's intimidating for parents, I don't. I think more parents sign up than actually show up. So I think that says that they have the intention of wanting to be there. Yeah, some of these questions I don't know the answers to, and I wish I did. Yeah, Hunter?
Could you tell that story that you told me about Marvin? Remember his sister being pregnant and he went to his home and.
With the men? Yeah. So Marvin, the entrepreneur, he's wonderful. I just love him. I think a lot of teachers don't like him, but because he's always so hyper, wants to dance and to stand up and just so much energy. But he's a boy. He's in 5th grade. So he's so hyper that he can't stand still, and it's like, I think as a teacher he should just be able to stand up and learn if that helps him. But his teacher is very old school, and no, we're sitting down. But anyway, so I said, hey, why don't we get you into the dance? We have a dance program on Mondays for kids that need a little incentive to come to school, and they'll come to school if they're like involved in something. So we have 19 kids that are in this dance class, and Marvin is one of those. And his mom does not have transportation, and I'm really not supposed to take kids home. So please don't tell people I do that. I'm really not, okay? I'm really not. And I really wrestle with this because, oh my gosh, he needs it so badly, and I really can't. But anyway, so long story short, I took him home one day. And like I said, I went into his house, and I know his mother a little bit, so I didn't feel uncomfortable, but so in Mosby Court, the door faces the outside, so you can knock on the door and they'll come. In the Oliver Hill Way apartments where he lives are actually apartment buildings, so you have to walk into a hallway and go up the stairs. And that's just a little bit alarming for me as a person too. And I really don't have fear when I'm in the housing project. I feel like a lot of people know me there, so I'm not afraid, but I'm just more aware. And so I was walking in with him, and I said to him, he said, you can come in. I said, why don't you go ask your mom first and then I'll come in. So he did, and then he came out and got me, and I came in, and her name is Deshawn, and I got in there, and like I said, there were 4 men sitting on their couches, and I mean, right away, I'm just more aware again, and I needed to talk to her because we're trying to get Marvin into private school, and he would just thrive in that setting. So I needed her to sign paperwork, and there's a $50 fee, and she wouldn't sign it because she didn't have the money to pay it. And I said, hey, don't worry about the money. We'll figure that out later. Just fill out the paperwork for him. So she did that. And while I was there, his older sister, Deshari, who went to our school last year, I know her a little bit. He also has another sister who was in 8th grade, and she was very pregnant. I'm assuming she's had a baby by now. Very pregnant at 15 years old. And I said to Deshawn, who's 34, and the mother, I said, you know, what is this? Like, you're gonna be a grandma. And she said, oh, I know. And I said, she was like, well, that wasn't in the plan, or something like that, and wasn't happy about it. But these older men were in there, and it was just this weird situation. And again, Marvin had his backpack on, and this is one kid, and this is the stuff that is really hard, and so many questions I don't understand. For him, it doesn't make sense. And then to come to school where you have to sit and do things this way. It's really hard. And so you can understand that these are the barriers that are up against our kids. And you know, this is in our neighborhood. This is in our city. And yeah, so anyway, that's a story.
Well, this sort of segues with the situation you found. I tutored a fine little boy who did very well. He came in not knowing anything. His mother had not been going to get him to preschool. He just blossomed. But I learned something.
Mm-hmm.
He had a father. The father didn't work. The mother worked. The father had a lot of philosophies very different from mine about explaining to Shema, anybody does anything to you, you just go after him, and
Right.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
But the father was a help because he loved sports, and he taught Shema to love sports. Shema knew all the players.
Mhm.
Shema wanted to be a player. He was about this tall.
Yeah, he's in 4th grade.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this isn't an ideal father, but, he's serving a purpose here.
Sure.
Is there any program to try to support?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we started something this year that's called Dad's Workshop with 4th Baptist Church. And we had 7 dads come in February, and it was so wonderful. So 4th Baptist, we're kind of charging them to start this dad's program. There are so many programs like that.
Good.
But, I think too, it's to be really focused in on one school is helpful. And so we marketed it to our dads. And like I said, we had 7 dads come, and they built Pinewood Derby type cars, like from Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
So they did that with their kids. And then we had a brief little speaker. So it was, yeah, you're absolutely right. And we do have dads that are involved. I'm actually quite surprised how many we do have. So thank you for pointing that out.
And I learned they don't have to be perfect.
Oh,
It's
no.
to serve
They just
a
have to be
greater
present.
purpose.
Present
Right.
is good.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
What's the turnover in the teacher population?
Very high, very high. It's really hard. I think if we invested in our 72 staff people and really empowered them and trusted them as educators and provided them with what they needed and allowed them to be creative, they would stay. But that is the number one complaint that I get from teachers is, what would you have differently? And that is more support. I need more support. When they call the office because someone's acting up and no one comes to their rescue and they can't keep teaching, that's a frustration. If we just had people that our administrators that walked around the school, greeted our teachers by name, just little stuff that I feel like we could be doing better, we would keep teachers. So yeah, it's not, we have one teacher that's been at our school for 14 years and she's excellent. But it's 2 or 3 years for a lot of folks. Do we need
Last
to wrap up?
question, Emily.
Okay.
Are the teachers, we tutored there for about 6 years, and it seemed to us the teachers were not aware of the home situations for individual students.
Some of the teachers, I would say, don't understand
They
it.
don't know.
Mhm.
And the tutors are not made aware of the home situations, and I would think it would help
I think, yeah, just in my own experience, when you come from a middle, upper class background, working with people in poverty, there is a disconnect. And their value system is different, and, you know, the vernacular is different. I mean, there's so many challenges there, and I think when you're talking about, you know, the North Pole and penguins or whatever, and kids have never seen a penguin, they never read a, I mean, it's just, you can't assume that kids know so much, and so there's that disconnect. I think that's a challenge, and I think that takes time. So if teachers can hang in there and really stick with it for 3 years, I think they would get it, and it would eventually work. But sometimes teachers become so burned out that they say, forget it, it's not worth it to me anymore. I don't wanna know what's going on, you know? So yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
I think one of the big hurdles is with the parent is that they probably had a very bad experience
For
with
sure.
school.
Yes, absolutely.
So they're coming to you.
Yep. And how do we break that cycle? I know, that is, yeah, that's the number one question, how do we break the cycle?
All right, well, time.
Can I pray for us, and then, would that be okay? Okay, let's pray. Loving Father, you are a good God. You are our shepherd, and we are your sheep. We want to follow you and be your disciples, whatever the cost. Thank you that you love us. Thank you that you don't leave us on the path by ourselves to discover your plans, but you are our guide. Use us today, we pray. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Well, just want to make a comment that I've been doing tutoring for a while, and the reward is in the one-to-one relationships you make there, and it's well worthwhile to me, as it has been for a long time. And I want to thank Ingrid particularly for spending 2 days this month with our church people, and going to school and having a big grin greet you when she happens to be in the front hall. It really is an upper, and I hope that this exposure to what's going on over there and our work in it is helpful to everybody. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for everything y'all have done.